Okay. Do we have live stream on?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Hira. And I have a confirmation from the candidates. Yelena, can you please put the results on the screen? I would like to congratulate Ms. Karima Benara as the new chairperson of Pharmacy Education. Congratulations. And thank you for all the other candidates for your applications as well. I will give the floor to Ms. Karima to say some words to the General Assembly.
Actually, I can't find the word, but thank you so much for your trust. And I promise you all to have a fruitful and amazing Monday. Thank you so much for everyone who supported me. Thank you.
Thank you, Karima. Any other candidate, if you wish to address any words to the General Assembly, please let me know, or otherwise we can proceed. Okay, so I think we can proceed. I have a direct from KMPSV, the Netherlands. Please take the floor.
Henrik, KMPSV Netherlands is actually a new comment, so.
Okay, you can still take the floor.
Yes, thank you, Henrik, KMPSV Netherlands. So we would just like to reiterate, please think carefully before you propose a procedural motion, because it takes a lot of time and that can be used for discussion. Elections are very important matters, and we believe candidates should be given opportunities to answer our questions, and we should also have thorough discussions to make an informed decision on what to vote. Even though we are all in different time zones and this GA may not be the most convenient for many of us, please be aware that we are deciding on important matters to help further the mission of the Federation. Also, we had ODs away from the computer or switch off their cameras during the voting procedure. Please be aware that you can lose your voting rights for this, and as well as people openly being on their phones during the voting procedure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, KMPSV, the Netherlands. It is indeed very important. And if I can add to that, as long as you can see some few points left on the speakers list, please cooperate with us and do not propose procedural motion. Just wait for those points to finish, because as you can see, we lost a lot of time on just voting on procedural motion. So these points are really very much important. Thank you once again, KMPSV. We can proceed to the next election. I have a direct from PPSA United Kingdom. Please take the floor.
Alex, BPSA UK. We would also like to ask the delegation, when they are giving points, to leave them as unbiased as possible instead of mentioning points that are directly in support. Please, can we just leave it open to general points of information to help other member organisations with their decision? Thank you.
Thank you, PPSA UK. All right, next election. Can we have the election on the screen, please?
Yelena, IPSF Secretary General, it should be shown on the screen. I don't know what's doing. Luca, can you please see if it's frozen or something? I don't know.
Doesn't seem frozen. What is supposed to be shown?
The election, the next election, it's the voting options are shown, but not the motion.
Yes, when I click it, it shows, so it is not frozen.
Okay, we can see it now. Thank you. Okay, before we proceed, I have a point of information from Motion Committee, Agata. Can you maybe say what you typed on the chat box?
Agata Motions Committee, just as a point of information for everyone, you can, as an association, express your support to a certain candidate during the closed discussion. It is not prohibited. However, you are here representing your association, so you should always take this into consideration. And only the executive committee shall not support a specific candidate. Thank you.
Direct, PPSA UK.
Sebastian, PPSA UK, thank you for your point of information. But a lot of the time, there'll be 10 points left on the parliamentarian system. And more often than not, they're not actually any new points. It's either going in circles or it's just points about support, which really doesn't help. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, PPSA UK. We understand the time limit and the discussion going on, but we still in closed discussion, you can still express any type of support that you have. It's just a recommendation that we keep any unnecessary motions or intervention limited so we can go faster, but there is no any restrictions in terms of what to say and who to support. So let's keep this in mind, and we keep the time in mind as well while we go. I will now, I just want a confirmation from the candidate for the Chairperson of Professional Development if you're in the room, Niranjan. Okay, I'll proceed with the discussion. I now open the floor for discussion. If you have any point, please do submit them through the Google form. First, we have NUSPS Singapore. Please take the floor.
Thank you. So this is the first point for Niranjan. Now, in your proposal, you actually have a lot of strong points for what you want to improve for professional development, as well as new initiatives, which is Eureka Hub. So I actually want to ask, with so many plans in mind, what do you plan to focus on? Because there are very ambitious goals in mind. For example, cooperating with ISPOL, and perhaps you might be open with other organizations as well. But what do you think will be the biggest priority in your mandate? Thank you.
Thank you, Rustam, for your question. I think for the biggest priority would initially be to stabilize what we have in PD, which means focusing mainly on the traditional PD programs and the online programs first, then moving forward towards the new initiative, which shows that we have enough focus and enough time to progress on those programs. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have South Australia. Please take the floor.
Hello, Ella from NAPSA. So you said in your application that you secured emergency funding for GPPED. Too many letters. GPPED. So how did you do that, and why do you think those skills would be useful for this role in professional development? Thank you.
Thank you, Ola, for your question. So back when I was part of the GPPD organizing committee, we faced some difficulties with miscommunication with our university and the sponsors. So we required a last-minute sponsorship to keep everything afloat. And my idea was we would reach out to previous event sponsors and sit down for a negotiation. It was a bit difficult because the sponsor initially sponsored a cultural program. So I had to sit down and negotiate with them and convince them that it would be better for them to support an internationally oriented program. So I feel that in a crux moment and a difficult moment, negotiation skills and patience and decision-making play a really big part in any chairperson role, especially PD. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Rpf Portugal. Please take the floor.
Rpf Portugal. Thank you very much for your application. I just wanted to ask you if you could elaborate and if you know what is the difference between formal Olympics and the clinical skills event Jeopardy, which were organized in the past. Thank you.
I'm sorry, could you please repeat that? It was a bit broken. Thank you.
Rpf Portugal, there is some sort of background noise, so if you can repeat the question one more time. Okay. Okay, Niranjan, question from Rpf Portugal. Could you further elaborate what's the difference between Pharma Olympics and CSE Jeopardy, which has been organized before?
Thank you for your question, Ines. So Pharma Olympics is a pretty new initiative. It's more of collaboration with all the coordinators and all the sub portfolios where we're trying to bring in, whereas the CSE Jeopardy focuses mainly on in-person events. So we're trying to have more online programs in a shorter time span, so that we can have more participation and more opportunities for all our members rather than just one single opportunity for everyone else.
Thank you. Next we have, okay, we have a technical. No worries, KMPSB, thank you. Next we have FPSA Sudan.
Thank you. This is Sarah Mahideen, FPSA Sudan. So my question for you is that we have a lot of trainers, but most of them we can say not active as needed. So my question is, can you create or can you do a SWOT analysis for the training portfolio especially? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So I think with regard to the training portfolio, we do have a large number of coordinators that are inactive. And one of the initiatives I planned to do was maintain an active database, also trainers who are available. So the strength of that would be we have enough trainers to support our programs, and the weakness would be that we don't have a means to keep them active at all times. And the opportunities that we could provide is probably any training requests that come through from member organizations or partner organizations for more collaborative programs. And threats, I would say, is communication gaps, which we really need to focus on this mandate. Thank you.
Okay, EPSF Egypt.
Minigori, contact person of EPSF Egypt. So I wanted to say that one of the strategic plan pillars are to increase the participation in online competitions. So I wanted to ask how do you plan on increasing member organizations' participation in such? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Yasmin. So in the current COVID time, online competitions are going to be the way to go, at least in the near future. So I think it will be imperative to reach out to our RPOs from different regions to promote our events and ensure they reach all member organizations, and also have more number of online events, but not larger events. If I were to explain, let's say an event that spans over 2 days rather than over a whole week. So we have more grasp and more attention from those who are participating, and keep them more engaged as the competitions go on throughout the mandate. Thank you.
Okay, Rpf Portugal.
Okay, Beatriz, Rpf Portugal. So you've mentioned that you want to prepare LIT and TDC guidelines. What are you planning to improve from the previous ones? And what do you think would be the impact? Thank you.
Thank you. I would just like to clarify, did you mean previous TDC guidelines or previous LIT guidelines?
Both of them. Sorry, Beatriz, Rpf Portugal, both of them.
Okay, thank you. So the LIT guidelines are currently in progress. They're undergoing review. So I think the key focus here would be one final review based on whatever's been happening and what improvements we can make and then releasing it. Whereas TDC guidelines, I don't think a solid guideline has ever been prepared. So I think it will be effective to coordinate with those who are organizing the new TDCs, which will be Euro and Paro, and take the outcomes of that and structure it into a proper guideline for members to use in the future. Thank you.
Okay, can I ask the meeting secretary to update the list of speakers, please? Next, we have Nzapso New Zealand. Please take the floor.
Hi, Fiona Nzapso, New Zealand. You mentioned in your application about a new initiative called Eureka Hub. Could you expand on what that is?
Thank you for your question, Fiona. So the Eureka Hub was a concept I pulled off something that was already there in my university, where alumni came together to set up an open creative space for students to bring forth the unconventional ideas, work in teams, and develop into a scalable working model and present it to sponsors and so forth. So what we're trying to do is not just target individual ideas through competitions like Innovate, but bring through ideas that any participant or student might have into a higher platform and give them the opportunity to develop it further. I hope I was able to answer your question. Thank you.
Okay, we have a direct from NUSPS Singapore.
Thank you so much. Now, Niranjan, the idea of the Eureka Hub and your answer seems to gravitate more towards a slant for entrepreneurial thinking, which I think is a new buzzword. And I think it has come into the limelight with this new kind of portmanteau of a word known as the farmerpreneur. So how do you think you can boost this style of thinking? Because especially in the healthcare landscape, this is very new. And I understand this comes from a good place, but what do you think this Eureka Hub can provide to spur this entrepreneurial thinking that you hope to achieve?
Thank you, Rustam. So what we want to do is mainly make the platform open. So what we're trying to do is bring in more partners to see the work that we're doing, create a more inclusive atmosphere, and give more creative freedom. So through the competitions and the events that we have, it's kind of restricted, it's very narrow. We want to bring in more entrepreneurial thought, as you did say. So what we want them to do is focus more on not just creating a concept, but think about how to develop it further, how their solutions would impact future generations or wherever they are planning to implement it. I hope I was able to answer you. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Rpf Burkina Faso.
Okay, David Fegansi from Burkina Faso. I want to first of all thank Niranjan for his nomination. My question is, how did he think he can support new members or organization in the implementation of the PD programs through this mandate? Thank you.
Thank you, David. I'm sorry, your voice was breaking in between. Could you please repeat that? Thank you.
Okay, I was asking, how do you think you can improve implementation of how you can support new members or organizations in the implementation of a professional development programs this mandate?
Thank you, David. So yes, this is a very important factor to ensure more activeness from new member associations as well as less participative associations. So I think what I would like to do is go forward with the one-on-one matching system created by my predecessor. Although we didn't have an opportunity to use it this mandate, I think a better way to tweak it would be to reach out to the best associations from each region via the RPOs and try and create a supportive environment and an inclusive meeting, perhaps, for them to voice their queries and later on help them move forward and plan their events together. I hope I was able to answer your question. Thank you.
Okay, IPSF Egypt, you can take the floor.
Yasmin, IPSF. I had another question. In your nomination form, you mentioned as one of your main points, solid team communication. So I wanted you to elaborate more on that. How do you plan on achieving such? So thank you.
Thank you for your question, Yasmin. So with regards to team communication, I felt that it could be improved because we had a few PDC members that weren't generally participative but had high caliber. So what I would like to do is continue the buddy system, what we're using, but instead of just using the buddy system for monthly short goals, I think we should have the buddies discuss together and work on an individual task, which they choose from any sub-portfolio. This will create more interaction between the buddies and expose them to different portfolio work more easily, and give them more experience, because professional development isn't just for members, it's also for the members of the PDC as well. Thank you for your question.
Okay, NUSPS Singapore, please take the floor.
Thank you so much. Now, Niranjan, now in one of your points as well for stage 2, preparation of WC, RS, and TDC, you actually mentioned that you like to implement projects such as the hackathon, escape room, and so on and so forth. So as a potential chairperson for professional development, I wanted to ask, what about initiatives from member organizations that show potential of being adopted on a global platform? For example, the Beyond Health Hack. As the director of the Beyond Health Hack, myself, I have vested interest in this. What do you think, or what do you think the stance would be, and how receptive do you think it should be to adopt this on a more global and wider scale in future? Thank you.
I'm extremely sorry for the bad internet, but could you please repeat the last few sentences of your question?
Oh, okay, sure. I'll just repeat the entire thing. I think it will be easier. Now, you mentioned in your description, at least, that you like to replan and implement projects such as the hackathon and the escape room. Now, as the director of the Beyond Health Hack, which was a global hackathon that happened previously, I would like to ask, how do you think would at least IPSF PD would be interested in adopting initiatives from an MO, but adopting it with potential of going global and adopting it to become more global instead of launching new initiatives?
Thank you, Rustam, for your question. Honestly, I do agree with you, and I feel that as PD, it would not be wise not to use any resources that we have. So consulting with member organizations that have conducted large-scale hackathons and trying and implementing it on a global scale would be extremely beneficial. But we would also need to consider the fact that we need to work with other organizations as well as our sponsor that we currently have and renegotiate. So there will be a lot of replanning involved, but it would be extremely beneficial to consult with those who have already planned and executed a very good hackathon. Thank you.
Okay, next we have IFSA Iran.
Ghazal Sharifian from IFSA Iran. I wanted to ask you, what are your plans for improving the compounding event project, since it hasn't been any competition held in the previous mandate? So what are your plans for improving this event? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So for this year, I think, again, I would like to divert back to Pharma Olympics. So in Pharma Olympics, we're organizing an MCQ-based competition for compounding. But what I think we should do in the future is maybe go out to an inter-regional compounding program where we have both case-based and MCQ-based questions for a more wholesome experience of the compounding event. Thank you.
Okay, CPSA Croatia, please take the floor.
Luka Nala, CPSA Croatia. We have a simple question. What do you think will be your greatest weakness during your mandate, and how do you plan on tackling it? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Luka. I was expecting this actually. So I think my greatest weakness is that sometimes I get too involved in my work. So involved that I disregard some stuff like health or social life and become kind of a loner. But I think that maybe as a PD chairperson, I'll have to rely more on my coordinators and the committee for good delegation of work. So I think that's one way I can really overcome this weakness of drowning myself in my job. Thank you.
Okay, Rpf Portugal, please take the floor.
Ines Rpf Portugal, I have another question because in your nomination form you mentioned that regarding the training project, we want to initiate interaction with trainers from partner organizations. So I'd like to ask you to specify some of the organizations that you'd like to start this collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ines, but I would ask you to repeat the last few sentences, the last sentence of your question. Thank you.
Apologies, I was asking you to elaborate and specify some of the organizations that you'd like to collaborate for the training project as mentioned in your nomination form. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So I think the partner organization that I would like to collaborate with would be initially IFMSA, IADS that we are usually collaborating with for our events, and also maybe reach out to the YNGO training network and give them more opportunities to either for our trainers to participate as well as their trainers to come to our programs, should there be options. I hope I was able to answer your question. Thank you.
Okay, another point from Rpf Portugal, please take the floor.
Please, Rpf Portugal. So how do you plan to foster IPSF implementation of hackathons and collaboration on this with other partners? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I would just like to clarify whether it was fostering hackathons. Could you just repeat the first sentence, please?
Yes. Could you please, so how do you plan to foster IPSF implementation of hackathons and collaboration on this with other partners?
Thank you. So for the current hackathon, I think it's best that we try and focus towards the theme of the World Congress. It is an innovative theme, and reaching out to partner organizations like FIPYPG, as we did for UN 75, and trying to bring them into the fold for more partner participation in these projects. Thank you.
Okay, Saf from Bosnia and Herzegovina, please take the floor.
Vedran Saf from Bosnia and Herzegovina. Thank you for your application. So in your application, you didn't mention how would you involve PD committee members, RPOs, and how do you plan to delegate the tasks? Could you please elaborate a bit on this? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So sadly, because of the 3-page limit, I couldn't mention much, but I can tell you that we will be following stuff based on the availability calendar and setting timelines initially using stuff like Gantt chart or applications like Trello. So we can organize the tasks accordingly and according to the availability of each PDC member so as not to experience any delays in deadlines or any changes that we can easily accommodate. Hope I was able to answer your question. Thank you.
Okay, Rpf Peru, please take the floor.
Hugo, Rpf Peru. I have a question. If the pandemic continues, have you thought about how TDC could be managed?
Thank you for your question. Yes, I did. This did come across my mind, and I feel that it's important. So I think that regular meetings with the reception committees of both the TDCs should be conducted to well assess the situation at each host country. And at least a 30-day or 45-day period before, when we decide that it's not possible to host the event, we should focus on moving the event online to platforms like Zoom for our GA or the way we did it with the e-conference. I think that is the most effective way to move forward with events that cannot be done in person. Thank you.
Okay, last point from CEP, not last one, UOP Democratic Republic of Congo.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Emmanuel, CP of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Thank you, Niranjan, for your application, but I still have a question for you. So we noticed that many IPSF members from French-speaking countries are not participate more in PD activities, and very often it's because of the language that's English in which those activities are organized. So in order to make sure no one is left behind, and since these activities are relevant to them, what are your plan to get them more involved this year? Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for your question. So yes, coming from a country where we have multiple languages, well, I understand your point of view. And I feel that it's going to be extremely important to collaborate with the Regional Media and Publications Officer or the MNP team to try and translate as many of the documents such as call for participants, promotional material, instructional videos, so that we can try and convey to the members who are going to participate how the program is going to run and try and develop an interest for that. Thank you. I hope to be able to answer your question.
Okay, Arabic Algeria.
Majda, Arabic Algeria. I believe during this mandate, PD Chairperson shared with us multiple updated guidelines and toolkits. So what do you think they're lacking? What do you plan to add? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. There are some guidelines that haven't been well updated and still need to be reviewed, such as the CE guidelines and the PCE guidelines, as well as the LIT guidelines. So I think that it has to have a more comprehensive review based on what the associations have also been doing. So we did a similar thing with PPAC, where we released a survey to understand how associations are holding campaigns. So I think the same can be done for the other portfolios to gain a better understanding of how we can help our member organizations to organize these programs further in the future. I hope I was able to answer your question. Thank you.
Okay, and we have a PPSA United Kingdom. Please take the floor.
Sebastian, BPSA United Kingdom. One of the only good things to come out of COVID was that a lot of the events moving online actually made them a lot more accessible, especially for BPSA members. Would you consider investigating whether online is actually the way to go, and whether this should be a permanent option for professional development events? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Sebastian. Yes, as a personal opinion, I do feel that online is the way to go in the current situation, as well as maybe in the future, because everyone has more access to a computer or a phone to participate in these PD programs. And it would be worthwhile investigating with the PDC members by releasing surveys on how much more likely members are to participate in online programs rather than in offline programs, and how much focus we have to divert to the organization of online programs in specific, rather than only focusing on the traditional PD programs at the regional symposia or World Congress. I hope I was able to answer your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Niranjan. I see no further points. I would like to close the floor for the open discussion and to move with the secret discussion. Joao, can you make sure that the candidate is invited to the waiting room, please? Can we have the recording off, live stream off? And I ask everyone kindly to open your cameras. Can we turn off the live stream, please?